about your creative process if you believed there were multiple right answers instead of just one perfect solution. I'm Sarah, and this is Creatives Processing, where creatives reveal their process and process what it means to create. In this highlights episode, I'm exploring 3 insights from my conversation with prop stylist and homewares entrepreneur Kira Corbin that shift how we think about creative collaboration, resilience, and the irreplaceable value of human connection in our work. Kira's journey from graphic design to styling to launching her ceramics line Standard Affair is a class in creative evolution. But what fascinated me wasn't just the beautiful objects she's creating. It's how she's navigated the balance between artistic vision and commercial constraints while staying true to her creative instincts. We're going to explore 3 principles that thread through Kira's journey: working in service rather than authority, embracing failure as learning, and choosing human collaboration over AI shortcuts. Let's start with a perspective that should fundamentally change how you approach every creative project.
One of the things I love to say, I say this all the time on set, is like, there are some very clear wrong answers in styling, but there are tons of right answers.
Oh, I love that.
There's not just one right answer. So sometimes you find a right answer and you know it, you feel it. You're just like, that's good, right? But sometimes maybe the client doesn't like it. So you're like, okay, we can find another one. Because there are plenty of right answers. There's just like intuition, like you just kind of know. Like suddenly everything is balanced. Suddenly, like it just feels right.
I love you saying there are so many right answers, but I can imagine that you think you found the right answer, then with the various amount of stakeholders that are on set,
Yeah.
someone may swoop in and say like, nope, I don't like that. And is that soul crushing, or have you over time have you been like, okay, that's just part of the job, and it's like, we try again?
It's only soul crushing when that person is like, I just don't like it. And it's like, okay,
Nothing
but
constructive.
why?
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, but tell me why. Because because ultimately, one of the stylists I worked with always used to say this, like, we work in the service industry. So yes, like I am there to serve you. You have hired me to provide a service for you to achieve what you need to achieve. So if this is not working for you, okay, why not? What is the thing that's not working? Because I bet we can fix that thing. And, usually we're able to. And it's not like this is awful, the whole thing. Like usually it's just like, oh, I love this. This is great. And this is great. And I love that. But oh, you used this one flower and the client hates that flower. They have like a personal vendetta. So just like, can we swap the flower?
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Like,
What questions do you ask to get those answers?
it very much depends on the conversation and what they come at me with. But that's the question. Like, what is it about it that feels like it's not working to you? What are you seeing that doesn't feel right? What would you like to change? How could it be better? How could it be different? What were you envisioning? What were you thinking? What were you hoping that this would, be like? Because then if you can describe that, then I can achieve that.
This perspective on creative work as service challenges how most of us are taught to think about our expertise. Kira's insight that there are tons of right answers is liberating because it removes the pressure to be the sole creative authority in the room. What I love about this perspective is that it doesn't diminish your creative expertise, it amplifies it. Your unique intuition and experience becomes tools in serving something larger. And that intuition Kira describes, that moment when everything is balanced and it just feels right, that's uniquely human. That's what AI can't replicate. And this doesn't mean compromising your professional standards or saying yes to everything. It means understanding that your expertise is most valuable when it's used to guide and elevate the work, not dominate it. When Kira talks about working with clients who say things like, I just don't like it, her response isn't defensive. It's curious. She asks better questions to understand what's not working so she can actually fix it. That's the difference between creative ego and creative leadership. Leaders create environments where everyone can contribute their best thinking. They understand that their role isn't to have all the right answers, but to help find the right answers together. So here's what I want you to consider. How might your creative work change if you approach each project asking, How can I serve instead of how can I impress? What would shift in your collaboration dynamics if you truly believed there were multiple right answers rather than just yours? Next, let's explore how preparation and flexibility work together to transform creative challenges into growth opportunities. Now, is that common sense, or is that coming from years of experience being on shoots and just having the experience of like a client's on set, they're like, "Oh, where's blank?" And you're like, "Oh, we didn't think about having that on set."
I think that it's experience, but I also think that like any prop stylist listening to this is like, yeah, of course, you need options.
Yeah.
Like it's like kind of the job, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I started learning this when I was assisting too. It wasn't just from me showing up. Because I mean, a client loves to be like, do you have this thing that I never even told you I wanted or even like suggested we might even need, you know? But like, it's just that because like when you're in the moment, even for them, like they might envision a shot a certain way, but maybe the way it's shaping up, it's kind of taking a slightly different turn, or maybe that's just not really working.
Mhm.
So, you know, what kind of pivot can we make? Or we got to the location and actually they have this thing over here that we didn't realize, but we could use this. And so having options just helps everybody like adapt more.
Yeah.
Um, Earlier in my career, I will say that like if somebody asked me for an option that I didn't have, I felt like a failure for not having it.
Oh, I
And
bet.
now I don't because I do bring a lot of options and I really
Yeah,
think
you
through
do.
all my shots. So like I, you know, like I'll just be like, oh man, like that actually that's a great idea, but we don't have that one. What I do have is this, and I have this, you know, and we could also potentially do this, like, you know, so I'll work with them. Kind of let them, you know, see the options and see what we can
Yeah.
figure out. You can't think of everything. You can't bring
No,
everything.
absolutely not.
You do have a budget. You do have space constraints. You do have time constraints. I think success and failure is very multi-layered, like sort of a multi-pronged thing. I guess as I've gotten older, I'm less afraid of failure.
Mm,
Failure doesn't feel so definitive.
sure.
I don't really think about failure in that way anymore. Like
Yeah.
failure feels, you know, it feels like this thing like you did something bad, you know, like oh no. And I
You
just
didn't
think that
have the
that's
prop that the client randomly asked for, you know?
oh
Oh,
yeah,
that
and
I
I don't
failed.
exactly like I don't feel that way anymore.
Yeah.
I feel like I did a great job. I brought a lot of props. And you know, yeah, I didn't think of that one thing. But okay, well, that
Yeah.
does not mean that I am a failure. That does not mean that this is a failure. That means like, okay, that was a good idea. I don't have it. How else do we problem solve this? We all have to try. Like, I think the real failure is not trying. The real failure is like stagnancy,
Yeah.
you know, complacency. It's just like no, having no ambition or no like desire to take your life somewhere that excites you. You're not always going to get it right, but also it like a great example is learning a language. Like you have to say so much stuff wrong. You have to like look like such an idiot, you know, like you have to be like it's very embarrassing to try to
Yeah.
speak a new language because you just mess it up so much. But you literally will never be fluent unless you do that.
Yeah.
So you gotta just go fail so that you can get good.
Early in Kira's career, not having the right prop on hand felt like failure. Now, it's just information, a chance to problem solve and offer alternatives. Her reframe of failure from I did something wrong to this is information for growth mirrors what I see in the most resilient creative professionals. They understand that stumbling through challenges isn't a bug in the creative process, it's a feature. Every project teaches you something about anticipating needs, reading room dynamics, and finding creative solutions under pressure. Her language learning analogy is perfect. You literally cannot become fluent without making mistakes. The same is true for creative work. You can't develop professional intuition without experiencing moments where your initial approach doesn't land and you have to pivot. I do extensive pre production work to set up my creative teams for success. But I've learned that over preparation can become a trap if it makes you inflexible when things inevitably change. You can prepare extensively, and you should. The question isn't whether you'll encounter unexpected challenges, but how you'll respond to them. The real skill is being prepared enough to adapt. But Kira's point about real failure being stagnancy and complacency hits at something deeper. In creative fields, we're so often afraid of looking unprepared or inexperienced that we avoid taking risks. But growth requires discomfort. It requires trying things you might not nail on the first attempt. So think about this. Are you preparing in ways that make you more adaptable? Or are you preparing in ways that make you more rigid? How might your relationship with creative challenges change if you saw them as growth opportunities rather than threats to your confidence? Our final insight challenges everything we're told about efficiency and automation in creative work. You worked with a developer rather than, I'm sure there are folks out there that would, I have an idea for a sketch. Let me just throw this into ChatGPT to have it spit the
Yeah.
sketches back out to me. Like how important is it to you to be working and partnering with somebody?
Any investment is way worth it because, she's also a person with a whole career behind her who has a ton of experience and a ton of her own ideas. And I obviously come in like with some pretty clear ideas, but she will say things that will shape those ideas or help, move them in one direction or the other. It's great to have a collaborator in that way. And I think she can bring a lot of value, beyond just like I could do all the sketches myself and then just send them to somebody to pay them an hourly rate to just redo them on the computer or in 3D. But I really like working with a person that I trust and whose work I really like. I think it strengthens the entire process and the end product.
This insight gets to the heart of what I believe is the most irreplaceable part of creative work. Yes, Kira could have used AI to generate sketches or found someone cheaper to execute her technical drawings, but she chose to invest in a real collaborative relationship with an experienced developer. The difference isn't just the quality of the output, it's in the process itself. When you work with another human being who brings their own expertise and perspective, the work evolves in ways you couldn't have anticipated. Ideas built on ideas, experience meets experience. You end up with something neither of you could have created alone. I see clients constantly tempted by faster, cheaper alternatives, AI tools, template solutions, the lowest bidder. But the brands that create truly distinctive work understand that creative relationships compound over time. The more you work with someone, the more shorthand develops, the deeper the trust becomes, and the more innovative the solutions get. This is why I structure my studio around long-term creative partnerships rather than project-based transactions. When you build relationships with creatives you trust, you're not just getting better work, you're creating an environment where breakthrough ideas can emerge because everyone feels safe to take risks and contribute their unique perspective. So, a challenge. Think about your current creative partnerships. Are you investing in relationships that make your work better, or are you optimizing for speed and cost? Because the shortcuts you take today might be limiting the breakthroughs you could achieve tomorrow. Of all of Kira's points, though, her point about her developer bringing a whole career behind her hits at something crucial. When you hire a creative, you're not just hiring skills, you're hiring perspectives. You're hiring someone's entire creative journey and the wisdom that comes from years of solving similar problems in different contexts. In our rush towards efficiency and cost cutting, we've lost sight of the compounding value of creative relationships. The cheapest option rarely produces the most innovative work. The fastest solution rarely leads to the most meaningful outcomes. But when you invest in building relationships with creatives whose perspectives challenge and elevate your thinking, that's when the magic happens. The most successful creative projects I've been a part of weren't successful because someone had the perfect vision from day one. They succeeded because we built an environment where everyone's expertise could contribute to something none of us could have imagined alone. If you're curious to hear more of Kira's story, including her walkthrough of the commercial styling process, why she chose to work with a career coach during her creative transition, and the reality of developing a dinnerware line from scratch, check out our full conversation episode. You can explore Kira's beautiful dinnerware at standardaffair.com and follow on Instagram at standardaffair. You can explore Kira's styling work at kiracorbin.com or on Instagram at Kira Corbin. I'm Sarah Mulligan Williams, and I run word of mouth a creative studio where I partner with mission-driven organizations to create brand experiences that prioritize human connection over flashy tactics. Whether it's orchestrating creative teams for complex projects or developing brand strategies that actually resonate with real people, I believe the most powerful creative work happens when we choose collaboration over competition and service over ego. Because at the end of the day, the brands that build lasting relationships are the ones that remember there are humans on both sides of every interaction. Discover more about word of mouth by visiting wordofmouthcreative.co. And if these insights resonate with you, tell me about it. Comment on the episode or reach out directly at Creatives Processing on Instagram. Thanks for listening to Creatives Processing. Till next time, stay human, stay curious.